Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari. Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari. Yashodanandana Braja Jana Ranjana. Yashodanandana Bhadajana Ranjana. Yamuna Tiravanachari. Yamuna Tiravanachari. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Krishna, Krishna Krishna. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahansa Parabhajakacharya Ashtotar to the Srimad Divine Grace Srila A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada Ki Jai. ISKCON BBT Founder Acharya Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahansa Parabhajakacharya Ashtotar to the Srimad Divine Grace Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur Ki Jai. Ananda Koti Vaishnavinda Ki Jai. Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai. Srimad Bhagavad Gita Ki Jai. Samaveda Bhaktivinda Ki Jai. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glory to Shri Guru and Gauranga. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. On this first day of April 2025 in San Diego, we're reading from Srimad Bhagavad Gita as it is, translation and commentary by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. And we are in Chapter 2, Contents of the Gita Summarized. Text 40 on page 107. Neha Vikrama Nashosti Pratyabhayo Navidyate Svopam Apyasya Dharmasya Trayate Mahato Bhayat Neha Bhikramanashosti Pratyabhayo Navidyate Svopam Apyasya Dharmasya Trayate mahato bhayat. Neha vikramanashosti. Pratyavayo navidyate. Svapamapyasya dharmasya. Trayate mahato bhayat. Neha vikramanashosti. Pratyavayo navidyate. Svapamapyasya dharmasya. Trayate mahato bhayat. Okay, on this side. Neha vikramanashosti. Pratyavayo navidyate. Svapamapyasya dharmasya. Trayate mahato bhayat. Okay, ladies. Neha vikramanashosti. Pratyavayo navidyate. Svapamapyasya dharmasya. Trayate mahato bhayat. Neha vikramanashosti. Pratyavayo navidyate. Svapamapyasya dharmasya. Trayate mahato bhayat. Neha vikramanashosti. Pratyavayo navidyate. Svapamapyasya dharmasya. Trayate mahato bhayat. Ashi, you want to try? Neha vikramanashosti. Pratyavayo navidyate. Svapamapyasya dharmasya. Trayate mahato bhayat. Bhakta Chad.
Neha vikramanashosti.
Neha vikramanashosti.
Pratyavayo navidyate.
Pratyavayo navidyate.
Svapamapyasya dharmasya.
Svapamapyasya dharmasya.
Trayate mahato bhayat.
Trayate mahato bhayat. You're chanting better in Nebraska than you did over here. Very good, Chad. You must be practicing.
Hare Krishna, thank you.
Did you want to chant, Prabhu?
Okay, I'll try.
Neha vikramanashosti. Pratyavayo navidyate. Svapamapyasya dharmasya. Trayate mahato bhayat. No, there is not iha in this yoga, abhikrama, in endeavoring, nashaha, loss, asti, there is pratyavayaha, diminution, na, never, vidyate, there is suopam, a little, very little. Api, although, asya, of this, dharmasya, occupation, trayate, releases, mahataha, from very great bhayat, danger. Translation. In this endeavor, there is no loss or diminution, and a little advancement on this path can protect from the most fearful type of danger. Now, you may notice that it didn't say fearful type of danger there, but that's what Prabhupada meant. The word bhayat can mean either fear or danger. I looked it up in the dictionary. And when Prabhupada said dangerous type of fear, but whenever he quoted this verse, he always explained how a little advancement on Krishna consciousness can protect you from the greatest danger, which is losing the human form of life. You see? So that's what he meant in that. In future printings of this volume, it will be most fearful type of danger. Purport: activity in Krishna consciousness, or acting for the benefit of Krishna without expectation of sense gratification, is the highest transcendental quality of work. Even a small beginning of such activity finds no impediment, nor can that small beginning be lost at any stage. Any work begun on the material plane has to be completed. Otherwise, the whole attempt becomes a failure. But any work begun in Krishna consciousness has a permanent effect, even though not finished. The performer of such work is therefore not at a loss even if his work in Krishna consciousness is incomplete. 1% done in Krishna consciousness bears permanent results, so that the next beginning is from the point of 2%. Whereas in material activity, without 100% success, there is no profit. Ajamil performed his duty in some percentage of Krishna consciousness, but the result he enjoyed at the end was 100% by the grace of the Lord. There is a nice verse in this connection in Srimad Bhagavatam 1.5.17. Okay, I'm going to chant. Those who want to can repeat. Chakva swadharmam chadanam bhujang hare bhajan hapakvo tapate tato yadi yatra kvabha bhadramabhura mushyakim Kovarta apto abhajatam swadharmataha. If someone gives up his occupational duties and works in Krishna consciousness and then falls down on account of not completing his work, what loss is there on his part? And what can one gain if one performs his material activities perfectly? Close quote. Or, as the Christians say, what profiteth a man if he gain the whole world yet suffer the loss of his eternal soul? Material activities and their results end with the body. But work in Krishna consciousness carries a person again to Krishna consciousness even after the loss of the body. At least one is sure to have a chance in the next life of being born again as a human being, either in the family of a great cultured Brahmin or in a rich aristocratic family that will give one a further chance for elevation. That is the unique quality of work done in Krishna consciousness. Om Jnana Timirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurun Militam Mena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. I was born in the darkest of ignorance, but my spiritual master Srila Prabhupada opened my eyes with the torchlight of knowledge. I offer my humble obeisance unto him and all members of Sri Parampara, this disciplic succession. So, I always like to share this verse with students who may be coming for the first time and not so familiar with Krishna consciousness. What Krishna is saying here is that practicing Krishna consciousness is the best investment you can make for your life. If you run it, you acquire some money and you want to make an investment, you want to make sure that it's going to increase. You may safely put it in well, not in the bank, you don't have to get any interest, but buy a bond or something, okay, I'll get 4% a year, But actually that's a great illusion, because all that does is keep you tied to this material plane, and so you will probably get at best a human body in the next life, but you'll have to go through birth, old age, disease, and death. In the 13th chapter, Krishna has a whole list of points of knowledge that we should try to cultivate, beginning with humility. We have to approach a spiritual master. But one of the most famous ones is Janma Mrityu Jara Vyadi Dukkha Doshana Darshanam. To always see, to be aware of the dangers, the sufferings of birth, old age, disease, and death. I like to put them in that order because that's usually the order they occur in. We've been going around and round and around in that samsara chakra, not just in human life, but also in lower forms of life also. And in those lower forms, there's no chance of Krishna consciousness. So now that we have this human form of life, we should invest our attention, our energy, our everything we have in trying to cure that disease, if you will, of birth, old age, disease, and death, that dilemma. And people don't know that. I mean, people know that they're going to die. They know that they see all around them. But it doesn't register on them that this is not inevitable. That's why the whole lesson of this chapter begins with the importance of understanding that we're not the body, that we're pure spirit soul, that we lived before and will live again, that this life is a short chapter in a very long book that we've been writing since time immemorial. And the human form of life is a rare chance, the only chance in all of these millions and millions, 8,400,000 species, according to the Shastra, and 400,000 of which are human varieties. You know, we're all basically one species. Any human being can practice Krishna consciousness, so that's the important thing. But it's a great opportunity to cultivate this knowledge, practice the disciplines of Krishna consciousness, and as Krishna encourages us here, even now the word is not opam, it's su-opam, a very little tiny bit. Even just this one class, not that I'm trying to give you what Krishna says here, and what Prabhupada says. You're not going to get a subhuman life in your next life. How auspicious is that? You see. But then you have to think, well, do I even want to take birth at all? So why not go for broke? It's very easy. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. You know, chant the holy name. Lord Chaitanya has made it very easy to enter into that, what Prabhupada calls an immortal phrase in the first canto, into the house of bhakti. That Krishna consciousness is very easy for the beginners. There's no hard and fast rules. Lord Chaitanya famously said, and those who know the verse can chant with me, Nam Nam Akadi Bahudani Sarva Shaktis Tatra Pita Niyamitak Smaranena Kalaha Etadrishi Tabakripa Bhagavan Mamapi Durdaivam Idashami Hajani Nanuraga. I put in a little poem. Krishna, Govinda, and Keshava too. Your names have no end, and in each of them you have invested your potencies, leaving none out. Whenever we want, we can chant them without the slightest restriction of time or of place. O Lord, who can fathom your infinite grace? Yet I am so wretched and devoid of all shame that I haven't developed a taste for your name. Now this is Lord Chaitanya himself speaking this. So he's taking the role of a sadhaka, dare I say. Well, how am I going to get the taste? Well, then he explains in the next verse, be more humble than a blade of grass, more humble than a blade of glass, more tolerant than a tree. To think all praise belongs to others, none belongs to me. Such qualities attract the Lord to bless one with the power to chant his name incessantly until the final hour. So that taste for chanting comes through the practice of Krishna consciousness as it's been given by our forebears. Lord Chaitanya, his main disciples were Rupa Goswami, Sanatana Goswami, and he taught Rupa Goswami for, 10 days, I think, or something like that, in Prayag. And Rupa Goswami then he uses that for writing so many literatures, the first of which was the Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, which Srila Prabhupada has given us as the nectar of devotion. And in that nectar of devotion, Rupa Goswami has nicely laid out the process of devotional service and the result of devotional service. There's descriptions of, where else are you going to find, descriptions of Krishna's 64 qualities, There's a list. It's also in the CC, let's memorize it. Ayang neta suram yanga sarvasar lakshananvita. But then he gives an example of each quality in a longer verse. He explains it. Then how do you expand your understanding or remembrance of any person? Well, it's Nama Rupa Guna Lila. You have to know their name first, his or her name. But then you want to know, well, what is he or she like? Which means the qualities. Qualities are manifest in the activities. So your Nama, Guna, Rupa, what's their form, and what do they do? You see? So the same thing is there for Krishna. And he gives so many beautiful details in that nectar of devotion. And Srila Prabhupada, he translated from Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu. It's available, So if you cultivate, you read these books, you'll gradually become more and more Krishna conscious in your life, and you'll learn what to do and what not to do. Because that's what any discipline requires. That's the first two elements of surrender, sharanagati. Anukulyena sankalpa pratikulya savarjanam. To accept the favorable things for Krishna consciousness and reject the unfavorable. It may be hard to reject them at first, so you have to gradually do it. And it may be hard to accept them, but at least you're making the effort. And Krishna sees, oh, this person is sincere. So Krishna gives you the spiritual strength to accept getting up early in the morning. Most people think, I slept over in the temple and they got me up in the middle of the night. What is this? 4 o'clock? I'm just getting to bed. So that's part of it, getting up early in the morning. Why? Because that early morning, that Brahma Muhurta, hour is very auspicious for practice, spiritual practice. The bikers haven't started their motorcycles yet on Grand Avenue, so there's a little peace, and especially if there's a temple that you can come to, and have the Guru Vashlika, the Mangal Arti, so important. See, so gradually you become. Oh, you don't want a book?
No, it's okay. I'm just not listening.
If you want one, just write it by your head. Okay. Krishna provided. Page 107. So anyway, this is the abhikrama nasa, means the endeavor in Krishna consciousness. And in this endeavor, he says, there's no loss and there's no diminution. Unlike material endeavor, no matter how successful you may be for a while, it's all lost at the end, because you may get so much money, so much prestige, so many friends, so many this or that. But what happens when you leave the body? You're still alive. Nobody dies. Every body dies, but nobody dies. Wake up, and open your eyes. You're not that body, you're a pure spirit soul. Chant the holy name and attain life's goal. That's the whole process, right, in much. So anyway, but anything else you do, you lose everything, because it all stays here. You have so much money, but there's a name on the bank account. That's the name of you. No, it's the name of your body. The body is going to die, and you're going to go off penniless. And whatever you did to make those billions or millions or thousands, it's going to come back to haunt you, because it's probably not, very auspicious. So anyway, so there's no loss or diminution, and then not just a little bit, but a very little bit, sualpam, advancement on this path, will protect you from the most fearful type of danger, which is loss of this precious human life. You see, we may have to take birth again because we don't perfect our Krishna consciousness, but whatever we do, if we do 3%, we'll start at 4% in the next life, like that. Well, let's go see if we can get to 100%. Maybe if you get to 50%, then it will be birth in a very nice devotee family from birth. Prabhupada, he was always praised. He had such a wonderful father and mother, and his father taught him how to play the mridanga very expertly, and gave him little deities to worship. And then when he wanted to do a Ratha Yatra, he was like 5 years old. His father tried to get a cart, and he couldn't find one to buy, but then some lady saw it, that Prabhupada wanted it, little Abai Charan. And so she gave him the cart, little boy, 5-year-old size cart. And he invited all his friends, and they were doing it. It's such an auspicious birth, obviously, So anyway, this is, and it's by contrast, and Prabhupada quotes this important verse in the purport. This is from the 5th chapter of the 1st canto, where Narada Muni has come down, and he's inspiring Vyasadeva to write the Bhagavatam. Vyasadeva, the situation is, as you probably know, he's the author of this book also. This is a little part of the Mahabharata. So he wrote the whole Mahabharata, 100,000 verses, very detailed, important work. It's one of the histories. Ramayana is another one. So he had written that, and the Puranas and the Vedas and all of these other things, but he was dissatisfied. Somehow he wasn't, he had written it. He's the literary acharya and literary incarnation of Krishna. So he was troubled. Well, why don't I feel satisfied with all this writing? So Narada Muni, his spiritual master, came down, and he said, now don't get me wrong, all these other literatures are valuable in their own way. There's a whole Ayurveda. You want to learn medicine? You can get in California, you can get certified as an Ayurvedic doctor, because the benefits are recognized, So that's there. Then there's the Jyotir Veda, which is astronomy, really more astrology. It's a real thing, Vedic astrology. And then there's Dhanurveda, how to be a fighter. There's also knowledge, what to do. Arjuna was very skillful. But the most important is the spiritual books, the Upanishads and the Gītā within the Bible. So he'd written all these books, but he didn't write any one book that just dealt with the ultimate importance of spiritual life in human life. That's why he was a little, even though Padma Purana is so much about bhakti, but there's other stuff in there. So Narada Muni comes down, and Vyasadeva was wondering, why aren't I satisfied? And so he gives him some because he's his guru. So you also find that the guru gives kind of some heavy instruction at first. So the first verses was, what is it? You know the one with the pilgrimage of crows. You know that one? Oh, okay. I can't believe I got it. Anyway, he tells them basically that any literature that may be written that doesn't deal with Krishna and the living entity and the process of devotional service, it may be very nicely done. Every verse may be very poetic. But still, it's like a place where crows go to gather. Garbage. The swan-like devotees don't go there. And the other one I remembered, oh God, I got to review my verses. This one I know. Tad bhag visargo janataga viplavo yasmin pati shlogam abandhavatyapi. So that one, the Tad Bhagavad Sarga means the creation of words, any literary work. Janataga Viplavo, which is written in order to produce a revolution in the misdirected lives of this civilization. And it says every verse may be miscomposed. But because it deals with Krishna and devotional service, then the great sages, they accept that, they repeat it, they relish it, you see. So basically what he told them is you need to write a book that deals wholly and solely with the science of bhakti yoga, Krishna consciousness, and then you'll be satisfied. So he told them you meditate on Krishna and then he'll reveal everything, and he did. And then he wrote the Bhagavatam. So the Srimad Bhagavatam is understood to be the commentary, the ultimate commentary on the Vedanta Sutra. Now Vedanta Sutra, the very word, it's not an accident that Prabhupada's name is Bhakti Vedanta. Veda is knowledge, anta means the end or culmination. So what Prabhupada's name says is that the culmination of all knowledge is bhakti, or loving devotional service to God, you see. So the Srimad Bhagavatam deals wholly and solely with that. So this was the final work of Vyasadeva, and in many editions of the Bhagavatam, at the end of the chapter, it says, I forget the Sanskrit, that this is a commentary on the Brahma Sutra or Vedanta Sutra. So this verse here is part of, as I explained, this is part of Narada Muni's encouragement and instructions that Vyasadeva should write the Srimad Bhagavatam. So this verse encourages us to take up the process. There's no loss or diminution. You can't lose. Where is there a process of investment on the material plane where it's a sure thing, you can't lose? I take a walk I get so much knowledge on this walk. I'm chanting. Every morning at 6:30 I walk almost 3/4 of a mile, and then I come back just in time for the curtains to open. And so at the corner here, there's a, what do you call it, bodega, you know? And they have a big sign, play the California lottery, you know, because we don't do that, you know. But they have the sign, oh, it's up to 100 million. It got into $1 billion at one point. And you would think, oh, well, how can I lose? I'll just put $1 in here, maybe I'll become rich, you know, like that. But no, devotees don't do that. So that's the gambling is one of the 4 regular principles we don't do, because it can become addictive, and you're hoping against hope, and ultimately you lose. Even if you win, you lose. They've done studies that people who win the lottery are more unhappy than the people who don't win the lottery. Because as soon as you win, suddenly you're an ordinary working guy, you know, you do a 9-to-5 job, and suddenly you have $10 million, you know, and all kinds of friends come out of the woodwork, cousins and brothers, you know, and people that you haven't seen in 10 years, 20 years. Instead of just your ordinary life, suddenly you got this. So they've done studies, and it doesn't, you're not happy to win the lottery. But if you take up the Krishna consciousness, then it's just, it's up to you how much bliss you want to get out of it, how much you want to apply yourself. Yes, there's austerity involved, there's do's and don'ts, there's a difficulty. But the end result, even if you just do a little bit, is all auspicious. Once started, you're on the path. So that's what this verse is all about. And it will protect you from the most fearful type of danger, which is not only birth and death, but to lose the human form of life and have to come up again in the species. No, there's no such thing as eternal damnation in our philosophy. There are hells. If you really want to get sober about Krishna consciousness, read the end of the 5th canto. I remember I was I have a long history. I've been 52 years in this movement. And in 1975, Prabhupada, we consolidated the whole Bhaktivedanta Book Trust in Los Angeles. There was facility for support there and everything. So Prabhupada came there shortly after that, and there was a morning walk. I wasn't on the morning walk, but it became very famous all over the movement. So Ramaswar and Radhaballabha, they were the two in charges for the production of the book. And it wasn't just the book. There were 15 volumes that hadn't been printed that Prabhupada had written. He was very, he was getting up in the middle of the night and dictating all the book, Chaitanya Charitamrita and Srimad Bhagavatam. And the devotees were falling behind. We printed 4 books a year we did in this previous year. And there was a 17-book lag, So Ramaswar and Robin got together, and they came up to Prabhupada. He's walking on Venice Beach. He would, in L.A., he would go on several places. And said, Prabhupada, we figured it out. We've got so many devotees we can fly in who can do editing work. We can do 2 books a month. And then within 8 months we'll have everything done. Prabhupada stopped the whole walk. He put his cane in the sand like this. Said, you have to do 2 books every month. Excuse me, he said 17 books in 2 months, all 17 books. And actually Ramaswar said, Prabhupada, that's impossible. It was just like a natural reaction, which it is impossible on the material plane. Nobody did. And Prabhupada said, impossible is a word in a fool's dictionary. You have to finish them in the 2 months, otherwise you're disqualified. So Ramaswar and Radhaballabha, so then the walk went on, and they were lagging back in the back, and they were, consulting with each other. What if you do this and this? So finally they said, Prabhupada, we can do it, but we need your help. You have to be available for consultation. It means that wherever he is over the world, he's in touch with the telephone. No cell phones. And Prabhupada said, yes, okay, and that we have to be able to fly anybody in, especially in America, English speaking, who can do indexes or things like that. Yes, you can. So that happened, and people started, coming. And so I wasn't involved at first, but then after a month, the devotee who was the other English editor dropped out. And so anyway, I got the call. So there were 4 chapters in the Ancha Leela. So now I'm 2 years in the movement. Anyone who knows the Antya Leela in Chaitanya Charitamrita, it's the most intimate, advanced, what Chaitanya. And I said, boy, what did I do to have this, boon? And there were the 5th canto. So there were 4 or 5 chapters in the 5th canto, and one of them was the last chapter, which was the description of the hellish planets. So you got to understand. We're working late at night, And there were some paintings that were done, but nobody wanted to hang those paintings of the hellish punishments up in their room. So they were, they were kind of just going from here. So I said, okay, I'm doing a chapter. I put it up, So it's late at night. I look at it, and there's somebody who's, is being forced to drink molten lead or something, because he's drinking wine. Anyway, this description of the sins and the punishments that come from them. So that's also there, but it's not eternal. There's no such thing as eternal. After a certain amount of time, it seems like a long, long time, you come up again, and you're able to come up to the human form. So we don't want to risk that, And luckily, just being in this class, you get, just from chanting the holy name one time, you get free from so much sinful reaction. That's how auspicious it is. Well, how about Tulsi Puja? Did you ever do Tulsi Puja? Yani kani cha papani brahma hatya kani cha tani tani panashanti pade. Just going around Tulsi, step by step, you get freed from the sinful reactions, even of killing a Brahmin, which is the worst sin. So why not take up Krishna consciousness? Anyway, I'm going to go on, unless there's some discussion. These verses are all quite important now. 41, famous verse. Vyavasayatmaka buddhir ekeha kurunandana bahushaka yanantascha buddhayo vyavasahinam. Those who are on this path are resolute in purpose, and their aim is one. O beloved child of the Kurus, the intelligence of those who are irresolute is many-branched. Purport. A strong faith that by Krishna consciousness one will be elevated to the highest perfection of life is called Vyavasayatmaka intelligence. The Chaitanya Charitamrita, Madhya 2262 states, I'll just chant this myself. Shraddha Shabde Vishwas Ko He Sudhida Nishchoy Krishna Bhakti Kole Sarva Karma Krito Hoy. Faith means unflinching trust in something sublime. When one is engaged in the duties of Krishna consciousness, he need not act in relationship to the material world with obligations to family traditions, humanity, or nationality. Fruitive activities are the engagements of one's reactions from past good or bad deeds. When one is awake in Krishna consciousness, he need no longer endeavor for good results in his activities. When one is situated in Krishna consciousness, all activities are on the absolute plane, for they are no longer subject to dualities like good and bad. The highest perfection of Krishna consciousness is renunciation of the material conception of life. This state is automatically achieved by progressive Krishna consciousness. The resolute purpose of a person in Krishna consciousness is based on knowledge. Vasudeva sarvamiti samahatma sudurlabhaha. A person in Krishna consciousness is the rare good soul who knows perfectly that Vasudeva, or Krishna, is the root of all manifested causes. As by watering the root of a tree, one automatically distributes water to the leaves and branches, so by acting in Krishna consciousness, one can render the highest service to everyone, namely the self, family, society, community, humanity, etc. If Krishna is satisfied by one's actions, then everyone will be satisfied. Service in Krishna consciousness is, however, best practiced under the able guidance of a spiritual master who is a bona fide representative of Krishna, who knows the nature of the student and who can guide him to act in Krishna consciousness. As such, to be well versed in Krishna consciousness, one has to act firmly and obey the representative of Krishna, and one should accept the instruction of the bona fide spiritual master as one's mission in life. Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur instructs us in his famous prayers for the spiritual master as follows. I'll say, you say. Yasya prasadan bhagavat prasado. Yasya prasadan nagati kutopi. Dhyayan stuvang tasya yashastvi sandhyam. Vande Guru Shri Charanara Vindam. This is the last verse of the Guru Vashtaka, which we sing in Mangalarti. By satisfaction of the spiritual master, the Supreme Personality of Godhead becomes satisfied. And by not satisfying the spiritual master, there is no chance of being promoted to the plane of Krishna consciousness. I should therefore meditate and pray for his mercy 3 times a day, and offer my respectful obeisances unto him, my spiritual master. The whole process, however, depends on perfect knowledge of the soul beyond the conception of the body, not theoretically, but practically, when there is no longer a chance for sense gratification manifested in fruitive activities. One who is not firmly fixed in mind is diverted by various types of fruitive acts. So Prabhupada would often cite this verse as very how should I put it, significant in his inspiration to take the incredible step of, at the age of 69, getting on a cargo ship and going from Calcutta to New York. You know, now he was doing that at the order of a spiritual master, Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur. Even at their first meeting, Prabhupada was a young man, newly married, I think, with at least 1 child. He had his chemical factory. But his friend induced him to come and meet Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur. Prabhupada was a little bit hesitant. They were arguing out in front, you know the story. Because his father was a very generous Vaishnava, and he would welcome any sannyasi who came to the door. But Prabhupada gradually saw that there's some of them are not really sannyasis. They're just like, he saw at one time a fellow just had put on the cloth of a sannyasi and went around begging. And then in the evening, he took it off and relaxed, you know. In other words, it was just a job. So he saw many who were not really sincere, but his father was so open-minded that he didn't want to take the risk of offending any real sannyasis, so he invited them all in. So Prabhupada said, yeah, I've seen all these sannyasis, I'm not going to go with this. Oh no, but he's different, you know, this is really... So they had an argument, and finally Prabhupada acceded and went up, thank God, you know. And he went out to meet Bhaktisiddhanta. And the first meeting, you know, there was a whole generation of young, well-educated, young Bengali men, because the English had been there, and they needed to have people who help run the country, you know. So Bhaktivinoda Thakur had a very good education, English. So Prabhupada was there. So Bhaktisiddhanta said, so they offered obeisances. He was sitting on the roof, and he got up. And even before they got seated, he was saying, well, you are two nicely educated men. Why don't you go and spread Krishna consciousness all over the world, you know? And Prabhupada was a follower of Gandhi at that time, that many young men were. This and that, you know, the independence movement, you know, very powerful. In 47, they finally got it. And said, oh, India is a dependent country. Until we become independent, who will listen to us, you know? So there was a little debate there. Bhaktisiddhanta, no, Krishna consciousness is so important, it can't wait for independence. So finally, Prabhupada was defeated. He had never been defeated. He was a very good debater. You know, he learned that in school. But he said, I was defeated by Bhaktisiddhanta, but I was happy that I was defeated, you know. And he accepted him in his heart then as spiritual master. And again, later he gave him the same instruction. You know, but what does Lord Chaitanya say? Why are we sitting here? You know, Piti Viti Yachi Yati Nagaradi Gram Sarvata Prachar Hove Moyanam. That Lord Chaitanya says, my name will be chanted all over the world. And it's understood that it's not just the Panchatattva mantra, but it's the Hare Krishna mantra that will be chanted all over. Because Lord Chaitanya is an incarnation of Krishna. So when he says my name, he says the holy name. So on the basis of the spiritual master's order and Lord Chaitanya's prediction, Srila Prabhupada said, well, it's now or never. You know, he had tried to do that in India and spreading through English. He had written the BTG and little, I think, Easy Journey to Other Planets in English. But after completing the first canon of Srimad Bhagavatam, he had that packed in so many, you know, of those Indian nice cases. And he got on that boat, and it was almost fatal. You know, he almost died. He had a couple of heart attacks. It was a difficult passage. But he came to America, and then his troubles really started. I mean, it was not easy to get this whole movement going. It's a wonderful story in the Srila Prabhupada Lilamrita, if you're interested in reading it. So anyway, Prabhupada was very moved by this verse. Because the commentary, see, this is I think Vishwanath Chakravarti's commentary, he stresses the importance of the order of the spiritual master. That this is a measure of Vyavasayatmaka Buddhi. And here Prabhupada is quoting this definition of faith from the Chaitanya Charitamrita. This is part of Lord Chaitanya's instructions to Sanatana Goswami, Rupa Goswami's brother. And what he says, Shraddha Shabde, this is an idiom in Bengali, Shabde means the definition of Shraddha. Vishwas kohe sudadana, a very strong conviction. Vishwas, sududha, destroy. That what? Krishna bhakti korle sarva karma kritahoy. That just by practicing Krishna consciousness, the principles of Krishna bhakti, all my aspirations will be fulfilled. You know, this is, I don't have to do anything else. It's not like we do it once a week, you know, and then we go do something. No, this is like, you can integrate bhakti into your life so that, you know, you can, you know, keep body and soul together. You can have a family. We had Lord Chaitanya, many of his followers, most of his followers, especially in Mayapur, were householders. So they had their job, but they were thinking of Krishna all the time and practicing and getting together, chanting, and so they were very advanced. So that can be there. But the faith is the beginning. Ādau Shraddha Tataksaru Sangata Bhajana Kriya. Again, we go back to Rupa Goswami. Where this Shraddha is foundational. It's faith. Now, at the beginning, it's this firm faith isn't there. So the Ādau Shraddha, that faith is enough interest, respect, to come into the association of devotees. And today, it often means pressing the right buttons on your phone or on your computer so you can access Thunderbutts.com or ISKCON Desire Tree. So many, you type this one and there's, Kadamba Kanana still doing his kirtans, wonderful kirtans. He passed away, but he's preserved. So that's a part of it. But that faith in Krishna consciousness and that firm determination is essential to advancement. That's the whole point here. And this key verse now, the last verse of the Gurvashtaka. Gurvashtaka means 8 verses about the Guru. And Yasya Prasadat Bhagavad Prasada, and we always stress, because devotees, especially American devotees, they're not so strict in following the diacritics. Sometimes they leave it. But if you say Yasya Prasadat Bhagavad Prasado, Yasya Prasadat Nagati Katopi, Yasya Prasada, what does that mean? It means by his mercy you'll make no advancement. What is that? Yasya Prasadan. It's Yasya Aprasadan. You bring those two together and you get Yasya Prasadan. But so you have to be careful, otherwise you're going to, I think, if you mispronounce the slokas, you can get the opposite effect. So this is, by his mercy, you'll get Bhagavan's mercy, prasad. But without his mercy, there's no gati, there's no process. Gati is an interesting word. It's like in Sanskrit, you find it all the time. Gati means the goal, but it also means the process to get to the goal. You see? So, without his mercy, there's no means of advancement. Therefore, we should meditate 3 times a day, this, I think, referring to Gayatri, and honor him. And the last line, of course, is the refrain line. But I offer obeisance unto the spiritual master. Okay, any discussion on these points or these verses? We're gradually making our way through the 2nd chapter. All right, let's do one more. So these are 2 verses here. Yamimam pushpitam vacham prabhadantya vapashchitaha avipas vedavadharata parta nanyadastiti vadinaha kamatmanak svargapara janma karma palapadam kriyabhishesha bahulam bhogaishwarya gatim pati. Men of small knowledge. Now, this is a good place to explain to you, because this is men of small knowledge. Doesn't say anything about women here, because women are all, But Prabhupada, Prabhupada would often use he or him or his, He means men and women. And he showed by the way he preached and he spread his movement, he gave women great responsibility. Yamuna was very instrumental in the spread of this whole movement. You may read about her. It mentions wonderful singer. She learned to cook. She wrote a prize book in cooking, Krishna's cuisine. And she was in charge of setting the worship standards for the Krishna Balaram temple. So anyway, and today in America, you go around and half of the temples in America are women presidents, and they're very competent. Yeah, heavy duty. So anyway, here is men of small knowledge, very much attached to the flowery words of the Vedas, which recommend various fruitive activities for elevation to the heavenly planets, resultant good birth, power, and so forth. Being desirous of sense gratification and opulent life, they say there is nothing more than this. Purport. People in general are not very intelligent. Okay, people, men and women. And due to their ignorance, they are most attached to the fruitive activities recommended in the karma kanda portions of the Vedas. They do not want anything more than sense gratificatory proposals for enjoying life in heaven, where wine and women are available and material opulence is very common. In the Vedas, many sacrifices are recommended for elevation to the heavenly planets, especially the Jyotishtoma sacrifices. In fact, it is stated that anyone desiring elevation to heavenly planets must perform these sacrifices, and men with a poor fund of knowledge think that this is the whole purpose of the Vedic wisdom. It is very difficult for such inexperienced persons to be situated in the determined action of Krishna consciousness. As fools are attached to the flowers of poisonous trees without knowing the result of such attractions, unenlightened men are similarly attracted by such heavenly opulence and the sense enjoyment thereof. In the Karma Kanda section of the Vedas, it is said, Apama somam amrita abhuma and akshayam havai chatumasya yaginaha sukritam bhavati. In other words, those who perform the 4-month penances become eligible to drink the soma ras beverages to become immortal and happy forever. Even on this earth, some are very eager to have soma ras to become strong and fit to enjoy sense gratifications. Such persons have no faith in liberation from material bondage, and they are very much attached to the pompous ceremonies of Vedic sacrifices. They are generally sensual, and they do not want anything other than the heavenly planets of life. It is understood that there are gardens called Nandanakanana, in which there is good opportunity for association with angelic, beautiful women and having profuse supply of somaras wine. Such bodily happiness is certainly sensual, therefore there are those who are purely attached to such material, temporary happiness as lords of the material world. Now, while I'm reading this and the translation, that verse that I forgot came to my mind. So I'm going to share it with you again. Nayad vachas chitta padang hare yasho jagat pavitram pagunita karachid tadvaya samtirta nashanti manasa nayasya hangsa nidamantu shikshaya. So those words which do not glorify the Lord, nayad vachas chitta padang hare yasho, means the fame of Hari or Krishna, conscious Krishna. They don't have anything to do with that. They may be very nicely composed, Chitta Badang Hare Yasho. The Lord who is Jagat Pavitram, who is the purifier of the whole universe. Pragunita Karachit, but no, not even one word glorifies the Lord. Then there's such place as Tadvayasam Tirtam. Vayasam Tirtam means a tirta, a place of pilgrimage, for Vyasam, which is crows. Ushanti Manasa Nayatra Hangsa Nidamantu Shikshya. The swan-like devotees don't take shelter there, just like swans don't go where the crows go, and the crows don't go where the swans go. And then the next verse is the one I chanted, Tad Bhagavad. But even worse, the very Chitra Badang, they don't go, even though it may be materially very nice. But on the other hand, those words which not so nicely composed, every verse is miscomposed, but it deals wholly and solely with Krishna and Krishna's service, then the swan-like devotees, they'll read it and relish it and share it. So therefore he's saying, you wrote so many things, but so much of it has nothing to do with Krishna, so it's a waste of time. Now you write your ultimate book, your final book, Srimad Bhagavatam, wholly and solely about the Supreme Personality of Godhead and the creation and all of these things and the devotional service and the devotees. And that's what the Srimad Bhagavatam is. And Bhagavad Gita is an important foundational book that is culminated in Bhagavatam. So here he's describing those who are, into going to heaven, and we know they're there, And later on, Krishna will say, "Kamais taiste rita jnana papadyante anyadeva tangtam evidikante." Kamais taiste rita papadyante anyadeva tangtam evidikante sadata bhava bhavita. That those whose knowledge is stolen away by material desires, they worship the devas, you see. And they may get some result from that. And they'll go to heaven, and they'll enjoy godly delights. How does it start? No, you don't know this book. Oh yeah. They'll enjoy, but then, chine punye matya lokam vishantam. When the punya that you've accumulated that got you there is used up, it's just like going to Hawaii. You save for 2 years, and your credit, you have, and the money in your bank, you go there with the card, you fly, and you come in, and you got your hotel room, you can rent a boat and some surfboards, and you're having a great day. But at a certain point, the card is rejected. Mr. Smith, I'm sorry, this card, do you have another card? No, I have to go back to work in San Diego. It's just like that. So the heavenly planets are like that. It's not permanent. It may be for thousands of years, but eventually you have to come back down. Martya Loka, Krishna doesn't mince words. You come down to this world of birth and death, So what did you get? You just went and came back. You didn't really make any progress. It's a waste of time. So he doesn't encourage worshiping the demigods. This whole temple is dedicated to that. It's called New Govardhan. It memorizes the lifting of Govardhan Hill, which Krishna did to chastise Indra, and teaches his his relatives and friends, you don't need to worship any gods. You don't have to worship Indra. You just worship Govardhan Hill, and you just, you know. So Indra then, he became so chastised, but then he eventually lost it again. It's not an accident that his name is Indra, and that the problem is the Indriyas, the senses are out of control. All right, it's getting late, so we need one poem. Okay. So here's a nice poem. This is near the beginning of chapter 21 of the 10th canto, which is the famous Venu Gītā chapter, where the gopis are singing of Krishna as he enters the forest and he's playing the flute and they're meditating on. So here's a nice verse at the beginning of near the beginning of the chapter. Barhapidam natabadavapu karnayo karnikaram bimbran vasa karnaka kapisham vajayantin chamalam randran veno hadada sudeha purihan gopa vrinda vrindaranyam sabadanamanam pravishad Gītā kirti. With lovely peacock plume upon his head, and fragrant flower placed upon each ear, he enters Braja's wood with graceful tread, a handsome dancing actor without peer. His golden yellow raiment brightly glows, his splendid garland reaches to his knees, and from his luscious lips the nectar flows, and fills his flute with charming melodies. As Krishna thus begins his blissful day, with coward friends who sing his glory sweet, he beautifies Vrindavan's forest way with fine impressions of his lotus feet. Gaur Premanandi Hari Hari Bol. Now, if you remember, Dravida108@gmail.com. I'll send you my file, full file of PDFs. I have a file of different poems like that. Okay, thank you very much for attending. And we'll see you tomorrow or next Taka Tuesday, whatever's most feel. And we'll continue with chapter 2. All glories to Srila Prabhupada.